Physiques by Andell Nutrition. I'm going to demonstrate today how I perform on my Veggie Medleys. It's one of my favorite Veggie Medleys as far as adding some more volume to my meal without adding too much calories. So one of the main bases of the medley is going to be a fibrous green vegetable such as broccoli. And for some variety and some flavor, I'll add 3 peppers, English cucumber, bella mushrooms. As far as the seasoning, I use avocado oil when I cook it, all-purpose seasoning, salt, garlic, pepper, some basic seasonings. And this is a new seasoning I just started using recently. It's an Indian season. It's a spicy seasoning. It has a onion, garlic, and a jalapeno pepper base. I also add some green and black olives for some more variety and diversity in the medley. As far as condiments, when it's fully cooked and I want to add some more flavor, it usually consists of some hot sauce, some 0 sugar added ketchup, which is very low in sugar, and some type of green sauce. So I'm going to kind of demonstrate how I chop everything up. And I already have the water going for the broccoli, so I'm going to start with the broccoli right now. I don't like eating too much of the stem, so I cut off as much of the stem as possible. And a lot of times if I have a big bunch like this or a bundle, I'll chop it up and make sure that it can cook a lot quicker and smoother. And I make sure I don't keep it in too long. I still want the vegetable to be crunchy, so possibly about 6 minutes. So right now I'm just adding the broccoli. And as I mentioned, I do this a lot of the time when I'm trying to make sure I don't eat too much calories. So when you're in a calorie deficit, you're trying to drop weight, you want to be conscious of not overdoing the calories, the carbs, the proteins, the fats. And one perfect way you can do that I've found throughout the years is just add more green fibrous vegetables. Perfect example is you can have a large bowl, something similar to this, of a green vegetable such as broccoli, and it will fill you up, but it wouldn't be that much calories, as opposed to if you ate something calorie dense like peanut butter or even steak. It would fill you up, but you also get a lot of calories. So if you're trying to drop weight, you want to be conscious of making sure you double and triple the amount of veggies you eat, specifically the fibrous veggies such as broccoli, green beans, spinach. My favorite is broccoli. I like the texture. It goes with pretty much anything, and it's always a staple as far as my vegetable intake. So as I mentioned, right now I'm just chopping up the broccoli. The water's going. It's pretty much at a boil right now. It's close to a boil. I'm making sure the bigger parts get cut up into smaller pieces so it cooks evenly. And like I said, you don't want to overdo it, because when it's soggy, it doesn't taste as good, in my opinion. So I make sure I don't keep it in too long so it maintains that crunch. So I'm just finishing up with the chopping of the broccoli. Alright, that's the broccoli right there. And now for the onion, I usually split it in half. And then after, I work on one side at a time. So for a large onion like this, I'll usually, depending on how much I make, but typically for a large onion, I'll split the onion in half and just use half the onion. Because as I mentioned, the whole point is not to make it too heavy on the carbs. The main purpose is to keep it heavy on the fibrous vegetables such as the broccoli. So if I have too much onions, that'll be too much of a starchy ingredient, and that kind of defeats the whole purpose. So I'm just chopping up the onions right now. But also at the same time, I can make a large serving, and this could consist of 2 to 3. And I could also make more broccoli in the future. And let's say, for instance, I have a large medley of peppers, onions, bella mushrooms, and cucumbers. I could continually make more broccoli over the time and add that into it. So I could dilute the amount of starchy veggies I use, such as the mushrooms and the onions. So I'm going to chop up this one as well. First I split it vertically. Then I do it horizontally. I like having my onions pretty small cut. Large pieces of onion is not my thing. You know, if you really love onions, you know, do whatever works. But I like having them finely chopped. All right, so I'm just gonna put this over here. And also, you want to be aware of how quickly each thing cooks. Now, onions and mushrooms, they don't need a lot of time. So I usually put that in more towards the end. So as far as the mushrooms, you know, I just kind of chop it all up at once. I throw it down and just chop it up. First I do like a vertical chop. I don't have as smooth of a technique with cutting mushrooms as I do with the onions, but you know, it all works. As far as how it looks a little crazy. It looks a little mismatched, but I've always done it like this and it works for me. And now I'm going a little bit more horizontal. Great thing about mushrooms or bella mushrooms, really nice texture, and it doesn't have too much flavor. So whatever seasonings you put in there, that's what it's going to absorb, and that's what it's going to taste like. So like I said, really good contrast as far as texture compared to the onions, the broccoli, and the peppers. And like I said, based on the seasoning that you add, that's what it's going to taste like. All right, so I have that. As far as the cucumber, I cut it pretty thin. I just go down the line and chop it like that. Now this is an English cucumber. It's a little longer. The texture is a little, I guess, grainier. I tend to prefer this over the regular cucumber, the more smooth cucumber. I like the taste, I like the texture. And I've always used it when I've added cucumbers in my cooking. So I just prefer the taste. Now, as I mentioned, I'm cooking a large batch, and a cucumber is not too much of a starchy vegetable either, but at the same time, the peppers can be somewhat. So if your goal is to drop weight, you want to be conscious that you have way more of a fibrous veggie, such as the broccoli, compared to the other vegetables, because you'll be adding too much starch. And as far as dropping weight, you want to be conscious not to add too much starch. Alrighty. That's the cucumber. Alright, I'm actually going to take the broccoli. That's the broccoli right here. So it's still crispy. You know, I took it off as soon as it started boiling, so it didn't get too much time in the water. So it's still crispy. So I just took it off so it stopped cooking. So I'm gonna show you how I chef the pepper up. So I split it down the middle. I remove the insides, starting with the seeds. And that extra white part, that part is not really edible. I mean, you could eat it, but it doesn't have much flavor to it, so you want to remove that. So I split it into 4 pieces, and I just proceed to removing the extra white pieces that don't have much flavor. So after I do that, I split the quarter piece into half, so it's easy to chop. And I do that with the rest. So I remove the excess piece that doesn't have much flavor, the white part. And then I split that in half. And I do the same thing with the last 2 pieces. So I'm not going to show the demonstration for these 2 because it's the same thing. but you get the drift. After I remove the excess, I split the quarter into half, which makes it easier to process. All right, so I'll do 4 at a time, and just kind of keep the pieces small. All right, I can go back into it again and get it even smaller. Now each pepper tastes a little bit different. You know, that's why I like adding this variety. And also, if you do some research, you'll see that a lot of times fruits and vegetables that's high in vibrant colors, they have a lot of antioxidants. So some good benefits as far as health benefits as well. It's not just the color. Like usually like vegetables that have really vibrant colors have a lot of antioxidants in them. So it's good to add some color and some variety into your meals going forward. So split it. And then chop it up some more. I don't mind the peppers being a little bit bigger than the onions. But for some reason, like I said, with the onions, I think because it's a little bit stronger of a flavor, I like the pieces being a little bit smaller. So with the peppers, I don't mind some of the pieces being a little bit larger than how I chop the onions, for instance. Alrighty, so that's how I chop the onions. So obviously I'll do the same thing with the other 2 pieces of pepper. And I'm gonna show you how I actually start chefing it up on the stove. Alright, so I got everything right now. I got the broccoli, as I mentioned. I got the peppers chopped. I got the onions, the mushrooms, and the cucumbers chopped. Like I said, I also have the olives that I'll put in at the end. So I got the pan hot and ready. I'm about to throw everything. The pan's already hot. Throw that oil on there. Start with the peppers. Cucumbers. As I mentioned, I'll start with that. I'll throw in the onions and the mushrooms towards the end. And I'll start adding the seasoning a little bit more towards the end as well. Alright, so first I'm draining the green olives. Empty it. Now it's definitely a good contrast of flavors because as I mentioned, the Bella mushrooms, for instance, have a really mild flavor. The olives have a pretty strong flavor. So just because you're eating healthy doesn't mean you can add some variety and add some taste. So it's a good way to add some variety to a veggie medley without adding too much calories. So there's no need to cook these. I just throw them in there towards the end when I have everything warmed up and ready to go. So this is not going to be blended in during the cooking process. It just gets thrown in towards the end. Just wanted to show you guys how it looks. Alright, so after that's been going on for a little while, I'm going to add a little bit more oil. Add the onions and the mushrooms. And having a bigger skillet would also make more sense. So if you're going to like really make a large serving, so you can just keep adding more fibrous veggies down the line and not having to keep doing this process, a large skillet or as large of a skillet as you can find would make the most sense. So I'm going to add a little bit of flavor to this. like I said, this Indian kind of spicy seasoning. You don't have to add too much. I'm gonna read off the ingredients to you. It's onion, garlic, jalapeno peppers, lime juice, apple juice, cilantro, coconut flakes, mint, cumin, salt, and some ascorbic acid. Can't go wrong with that, right? And then this all-purpose seasoning consists mainly of garlic, sea salt, ground mustard seed, organic black pepper, lemon peel, orange, apple cider vinegar, powder, lemon juice. Stir this up a bit. Obviously, I pretty much seasoned the top, so after I stir it up a little bit, I'll season it some more. So right now, this is just cooking away. As I said, going forward, if you were to make something as large as this, it would be better suited in a larger skillet. But I just want to show you guys how I kind of throw it all together and how it looks when it's cooking and also when it's fully prepared. I'm actually going to chop up some garlic and add some garlic to this as well. I add some garlic. As the medley is still cooking right now, you can hear a little bit of that sizzle. Alright, so I'm just going to chop up the garlic a little bit, just to add some more flavor. So some of the all-purpose seasoning I have already has some garlic in it, but you never have too much garlic. And you know, dried processed garlic and actual fresh garlic is two different things. So I'll make sure I have some fresh garlic in there. I think I might invest in one of those choppers going forward, especially for garlic, because this is another thing where large pieces wouldn't be the best as far as taste is concerned. You definitely want it fine. So I'm just going to go back and forth a few different rounds, just chopping it up. As far as all the health benefits as well, it's widely regarded as one of the most healthy herbs you can find. So many good benefits, and it also has tremendous flavor. Like, you don't even have to add that much and you definitely taste the difference. So as far as like healthy cooking and also making sure it's flavorful, this is definitely a staple as far as my cooking is concerned. Alright, so I'm about to throw that in there. Let's throw that in there. So now that I mixed it up a little bit, I'm going to add some more seasoning. The all-purpose. And a little bit more of the spicy Indian blend. A little bit more oil. Let's mix that up again. So right now it's definitely starting to come together. I mean, you could eat it like this if you want, but I like making sure it gets a little bit of color, a little bit more flavor. When it has a little bit more color, it also has a little more flavor. So I also like making sure it has more flavor and color to it. So possibly like another 7 minutes, I would say. Making sure the bottom part goes to the top and the top goes to the bottom. Making sure everything is evenly distributed as far as all the seasonings I just added for the second time. Yeah, it's starting to look real good, if I do say so myself. The last finishing touch I do with this medley is some avocado. So as I mentioned, how I add the olives at the end, there's no need to cook the olives. Same thing with the avocado, you don't cook avocado, but to add some variety, add some healthy fat, add some flavor. You know, avocados have a really mild flavor, and the contrast and texture as well is also good to add. So I just split it in half, and typically one serving, as far as the veggie medley, with a heavy serving of green veggies, fibrous veggies like broccoli, I'll have half an avocado. Because you want to be conscious, it's a healthy fat, but it is a fat, and you don't want to overdo the calories if you want to drop weight. All right, so right now I do want to drop some more weight, so I definitely want to make sure I'm conscious not to overdo the unnecessary amount of calories in each meal that I have. All right, so just kind of peel it. One tip as well, when you're avocado shopping, if you know you use it regularly, I would say get half and half, meaning get half that's ready to use right now, get half that probably will take a few more days to get ripe, because they do spoil very quickly. So if you have, let's say for instance, 5 avocados ready to use right now, by the 4th or the 5th day, that avocado may be useless. So if you know this is something that you eat on a regular basis, I would say get half and half. Get half that's ready to use right now, get half that will take a few more days to ripen. All right, I usually kind of split it thin like that. So it's already halved, and like I said, I just split it thin. There you go. So I'll put that separately in its own little container. So now, as you can see, I have my 3 finishing touches. I got my fibrous broccoli, fibrous green veggie, I have my avocado, and I have my olives. So I'm not going to use all that. I'm going to take about a handful, take a really big handful of that, use this and the veggie medley. So I'm about to kind of show you guys how it all looks together when it's plated. Now I'm about to plate everything. So first, I'm going to add some broccoli back to the plate. I'm actually about to eat right now, so I'm going to warm the broccoli up. And as you can see, that's a pretty significant amount of broccoli. So I'm going to warm that up. Since the medley is already hot, I'm just going to throw it on top. The finished product, still steaming hot. I just took the burner off, and you can see some parts are more caramelized, a little darker, and that's how I like it. It definitely adds more flavor to it when it's like that. Specifically the onions. Right, that's why I added it towards the end. They do cook pretty quickly, so that's why I did it like that. And like I said, this right here is the finished product of the medley. This could be about at least 3 servings. You saw how large the serving of fibrous vegetable was, the broccoli. So a legitimate large scoop of this, along with a serving of the olives and that half of avocado, will be a perfect amount of veggies for a veggie medley, in my case. Right, so a lot of times I'll eat this with a protein, a lean steak, fish, something along those lines. I'm actually about to eat some lean protein that I got from Whole Foods. So as far as the veggie portion, I showed you guys how I cooked it and how I usually do it when I eat a meal where I want to make sure that the majority of the meal comes from a vegetable source. All right, so the broccoli is steaming. The veggie medley is steaming. Put that like that. A few black olives, a few green olives, a little bit more of each. And then the avocado. Now I don't, weigh food out and everything like that. I eyeball it. I know this looks like a lot, I am pretty swole. But for the most part, I'll eat like 2 large meals like this, where the majority of the meal comes from veggies, right? And like I said, I did get some healthy protein from Whole Foods. I'm gonna add some of that to it. And this will be my first meal of the day, post-workout. And I'm gonna have another workout later, and that'll be my second meal of the day. Other than that, I'll get some healthy snacks in there, some almond milk, small serving of nuts, and that'll pretty much be it. If towards the end of the night I still feel hungry, I'll just pretty much load up on the fibrous veggies without the avocado, without the extra parts of the melody, and just make sure that I'm content with something healthy and I'm not overdoing the calories. All right, so for the most part, 2 large meals like this, with this being the bulk of it, with a little bit of healthy protein. And if I feel like I'm still hungry towards the end of the night, I'll just go crazy with the fibrous veggies, mainly broccoli, with a good amount of water intake. All right, guys, I hope you learned something. I hope you add a little bit more veggies to your meals, and see you next time.